guys, this is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this next review we're going to look at the 2013 Marvel Legends Protector figure. New character, a lot of people were excited about. People thought it looked pretty good overall, and it's okay. Another one is just a lot of areas kind of let me down again. It's the same mold that we've seen. He's got the hands that don't really hold anything very well from the Forged 2-pack. Those hands. It's the same hands they used for Phantom X, which makes sense because they gave him Phantom X's belt and guns, which we already know is a problem. I'll get to that in a minute. I guess he's okay. It's a nice addition to the collection character-wise, but as far as execution goes, it could have been better. 6 1/4 inches tall, so he fits in just fine. Head sculpt is okay, except the eyes. They lost a little bit of their good looks, so to speak. They're just kind of googly, just a bit. They're just somehow off. I know the paint app's not helping it because it's not perfectly lined up, but compared to the concept art or the character art, whatever you want to call it, and the one we saw at SDCC, if I'm remembering correctly, the eyes just look a little bit off. They look less like goggles and more like bug eyes. But it's not a huge deal because at least from the side he looks pretty normal and looks okay. And the head sculpt's okay. It's just, I don't know. It just seems to be lacking in the eye department, which is where a character gets most of his expression. But that's just me. So the articulation's there. It doesn't go too far back, but it's got enough range of motion, so it's okay. He's got the same torso we've seen a dozen times with this butterfly joint. That's okay. It's actually more effective on this figure than it has been in the past. So that's okay. It's not my favorite design just because it's kind of ugly, but it is effective and they did a decent job with it. So that's a nice touch. Ball disc shoulders, bicep swivel, all things we've seen before. Double jointed elbow. This piece is glued on. It's not part of the actual mold. So if you wanted to, you could probably get that off. But he's got that with the little red dot on it. And like I said, he's got the forged gun hands. The black striping on this guy is the best thing about the figure. Just like the Spider-Man, they did a good job with the black line work. It's solid, the edges are sharp and crisp. There's no complaints there. But other than the red dots, he has no paint on him at all. It's just solid, pearlescent white plastic. He needed some shading. Being an almost entirely white figure, you need to have some shading on there, I think. Otherwise, he just kind of looks unfinished. The red is kind of a brighter red, so it looks kind of cheap. Again, maybe I'm being too critical of these things, but I don't know. It's just kind of disappointing, and maybe you guys are understanding where I'm coming from. Maybe you're not. To me, it's the little things that make a figure good, and just having an off-sided circle, or however you want to say that, it's lopsided, and just the paint looking cheap, or not having any paint on it other than the stripe work and the dots, it just makes the figure less enjoyable to own and to purchase. So anyway, let's get back to it. He's got the ab crunch, which is pretty effective. It's one of the more posable ab crunches, although you can see right into his torso there because they didn't really fill that in properly. Same thing this way. Got a big gap in his chest. As long as you look straight from the front, it's okay though. It's not the worst. He's got the same belt as Phantom X, and it just kind of floats around the ab crunch, usually on the top half because it doesn't fit down over the hips, because as we know from this mold before, the lower half of that cut joint is bigger than the bottom half. So the belt's going to stay up there. Looks kind of off to me, especially since the belt has no paintwork either. It's just solid molded plastic again. The holsters are facing the right way, but as we know from these guns, the guns don't fit as well facing the proper way as they do facing the back way, because these are obviously fancy modified guns with the little optical scope on there, and it just gets in the way, so they kind of sit funny and not nearly as well as they should. While we're here, let's look at the guns. Good sculpt work, no paint, solid black plastic, which would be okay if it was a sloppy, plain old bland sculpt, which I wouldn't prefer. But with a sculpt like this, at least give it a dry brush or a wash. Make it a different color and then give it a wash, just something. I mean, it's such a nice sculpt, and then nothing. So, another cut corner in my opinion. We have the waist twist, wide jointed ball disc hips, which are really stiff, but the lines do line up if you want to spend the time to get them to line up. They do line up pretty well. the old thighs that we've seen lots of times before, double jointed knees, and then the new Spider-Man lower legs. No cut joint in the shin, which I'm fine with. Some people may not like that, but he's got the nice muscular in the lower leg, musculature. He's got the ankle pivot with the new type of ankle rocker in the Spider-Man feet, which look a little big on the guy maybe. Not so much so that it's a problem, but that just kind of caught my eye. How does he hold the guns, you ask? Well, I'll show you. He can hold them if you put them in right, but in order to hold them facing forward, you have to cock the fist in, or the hand in like that. It's not too far off, but so he can hold it straight enough that way, but he's still holding the gun, pointing it not the way someone, in order for him to shoot forward, he has to hold it like that. That looks pretty stupid. You can do like some people have suggested, mostly solid, and put the thumb over the trigger, or the, gosh, I'm having a brain fart. Whatever that piece is called. I always do that while I'm in the middle of a review. But even then, he still doesn't hold the gun straight. It's still at an angle, and it's just silly looking. If you're going to make a character who uses two guns, give him two trigger fingers and two guns, make him be able to hold it straight. They could have just put the Nick Fury hands in there, like we've seen before. He holds them much better. Same thing on this side. It's not as bad on this side, but it's still not good. And I don't think, yeah, these ones are not going to come out as easily as the Phantom X hands did, so swapping them out is not as much of an option as it was before. So, all in all, is this guy a good figure? He's a nice addition to the collection, but a good figure, I don't know. I'm going to have him hold a gun like that because he'll do better work whacking somebody with it than trying to shoot with his hand pointed down. So there he is. There's Protector. Like I said, a nice addition, but don't get too excited. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for the rest of the Marvel Legends 2013 reviews. In the meantime, keep collecting.